A pill is never going to fix somebody. It could help, but it's not going to fix them. What helps people, what fixes people is their heart. It's getting to their heart. It's getting to their core. It's having that integrity to just want to serve.
You're listening to Hearts of Excellence, brought to you by Majestic Care, where real stories from long-term care come to life.
Jeannie has spent her life walking both sides of the hospital bed, first as a nurse, caring for open heart patients, then as a leader, transforming entire organizations. She's taken facilities from the brink of closure to national recognition, not by chasing titles, but by building trust, and never losing sight of the human beings behind every chart. At her core, Jeannie is a nurse with an unshakable belief that compassion can change outcomes. And today, she's here to share those stories and lessons that prove it. So, Jeannie, what first inspired you to enter the nursing field?
It's a heartfelt story. My mom was an incredible lady. She, when she died, the pastor said to know June was to know the heart of the child. Wow. And she was great. She was a runner, a walker. She was great. And she had a heart attack at the age of 70. And we never anticipated it. And I was not a nurse at that time. I was just working in healthcare. So, obviously you had to go to the hospital, and I noticed the care that they were giving my mom. Nurses were kind, but they never slowed down to listen to her. They never slowed down to get to know her story or get to know why things bother her. And they never explained, you need to have a bedside commode because your heart is so wounded, you can't make it to the bathroom that's in the room. She didn't understand that. She was mortified by the fact that she had to use a bedside commode. So watching her dignity, watching what was important to her be taken away, I was like, I'm not going to let that happen. If I can do anything out of this bad moment, if I can take some good out of this tragedy, I'm going to do nursing, and I'm not going to let that happen to my patients.
That pivotal moment for you with your mom, that's a very personal experience. And thank you for sharing that. Prior to that, was there anything, a lot of times nurses or people that care for people, that's who they always were. Were you that caregiver type person prior to that, or child, or I'm interested?
If you ask my family, they'll probably say no, I was the baby of 6. So they said, I'm still the baby, even though I'm 50 plus years old. And my dad died at home in 1983, and it was before hospice. I was fortunate enough, my sister was a nurse, or still is a nurse to this day, and my brother-in-law, her husband, was an anesthesiologist, still to this day is an anesthesiologist. We were able to medicate Dad at home and keep him comfortable way before hospice. So kind of seeing that probably took root in my trajectory later on in life to become a nurse. And I think that also is part of my advocacy for caring in the dignity of our patients, regardless of the space they are at in their journey of life.
So Jeannie and my story crossed paths when I was a COO of my last company. I remember we had the director of nursing position open. The administrator's job's hard, but the director of nursing is the hardest. By hands down the hardest job. And I remember we were trying to find a director of nursing, and to be quite honest, someone crazy enough to take this on. It was surreal.
I had no idea.
So Jeannie interviewed once.
Yeah.
I didn't meet you at that time.
No, you didn't.
And I just heard that they interviewed somebody but didn't select her because she never had long-term care experience. So on and so forth. So they kept moving on. And I think we might have, I can't remember, hired somebody, but then that didn't work out.
Correct. Yeah.
So then Jeannie's name reappeared. So then I'm like, I'm going to meet with this lady. So I remember her coming in. And so Jeannie, I will always say, she was the saving grace, but she's also my nightmare. So
that's so nice.
I love that.
It says she came in and she, in 3 years, turned that building from being
focus,
almost completely shut down.
Yeah.
Wow.
to be in the highest shining star of the whole organization. Literally.
It's incredible.
The whole organization. To the nightmare being is challenging not every step of the way, but challenging every philosophy of nursing home.
Yes.
So I remember the epidemiologist.
Yep.
So
Love that story.
As you guys know, we need to have an infection control nurse, right? And I remember Jeannie's like, I want to hire an epidemiologist.
That's a brilliant idea.
And I'm like, what? So again, in my infinite wisdom, you need a 16-point plan.
Yeah.
And Jeannie's
He's like, what?
Oh, for goodness sakes, I don't want to write 16-point plan.
Right.
I just want to hire her so I can get crap done. And it was
a push and pull.
It was a push and pull.
I mean, I was shot down. I'm like, no, the regs say they have a microbiology, epidemiology, or a nurse. And I'm like,
because the industry doesn't go.
Yeah.
Jeannie would go against the current.
Always.
So ended up hiring an epidemiologist, and it worked out phenomenal. And it wasn't just that, because now we didn't get through on this one, but there was also the social work and rec therapy. I remember that one, because you're like, I want the social work and rec therapy to report up to
absolutely.
nursing. And it's like,
But why?
But no.
But why?
Well, and I remember we were on the phone, and I'm like, Jeannie, all I can tell you is it's never been done. Well, does that matter? No, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that those positions never reported to the director of nursing. They've always reported to the administrators. Not saying it's right or wrong, because the regs don't tell you where they have to report. But, if you step back and really look at the picture and really understand what that role really is and what that role really brings, it is the quality of care to the residents' lives. And whether it be antipsychotic usage. And again, who governs antipsychotics? Now, if we go to the highest level, it's the physician. Because the nurses are only carrying out what the physician orders. So you need to make sure they're not just going off and writing scripts frivolously. But then when it comes to that balance of it is a nursing social work relationship. And making sure that we have all the right pieces. And if you as a social work report to me as administrator, you're going down this path, but the director of nursing is going down that path. So you challenge the status quo, which I so appreciate, because again, it really was always about the residents' care.
100%.
It was never about just so Jeannie has a bigger entourage. It was about what is in the best interest of this resident's care to give them the highest quality of life.
Right.
And not one time did I ever see a resident come in, because Belling took some really challenging patients.
Oh, yeah. We took Huntington's, the hard to place.
Behaviors. But not once ever felt like a resident was ever going to go there and they were going to be judged on who they were.
I want to double click on that. It's so important, I feel like, for not only leaders, but everyone to understand is nobody makes the decision when they're 6 years old, the family they grow up in, or that they're going to go be a drug addict. And that's so important, right? Speak on that.
There's two ways I've looked at that. Is back when I was an administrator, I ran a large building, and it was inner city, and that's the clientele we had. It was a 278-bed nursing home. So when you run 278, you have to fill up with a lot of people.
Right.
So you don't get 278 90-year-olds. So I had anywhere from 21 up to 100. So again, you bring a lot of diversity into a facility. And I remember one time standing in front of my leadership team, and we were talking about the residents, and we were talking about admissions and all that. And they said, why do we always get these patients?
Yeah.
And it did break my heart, because I'm like, well, but who else can take care of them? And I remember working with you, and then you would always say, take care of the care team or the staff, and they'll take care of the residents.
Absolutely.
And it was such a pivotal point, because it's like, nobody sat as a child and said, I hope I come from a broken home, and I hope my mom and dad do this, and I hope I become an alcoholic and a drug abuse. Nobody drives for that.
No.
And I remember you always would say, who just puts that hand on their heart? And who just cares for them?
Yeah.
And just gives them, because that might be the only touch they get that day.
That's right.
That might be the only person that gives them the time of day to show that they care.
Right.
Might be in that one moment of time.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on that, it is a calling, but more so, we need to have compassion. And compassion is action, but compassion is visceral. Yes. Compassion is that you do it because you're so moved by that patient.
Right.
There isn't
an alcoholic Barbie. There isn't prostitute Barbie. I mean, there isn't like little girls don't grow up to want to be trafficked or on the streets or whatever. They don't grow up to be like that. So what trauma did they endure? Correct. What sad moment that they had no control over did they endure? We have the honor of being in that person's life at that moment to help them, to serve them. That's compassion, where you are moved by that human. It's a humanistic approach. And that's, to me, what the core of nursing is about. It's about compassion. You can't teach that in nursing school. You just can't. You're born with it. You develop it based upon your own story and what the things that you endure. We all have stories. We all have moments where we're like, I wish that I could just do that over again. But it's when you take those moments and you turn it into good, even though it was intended to do harm, but you turn it to do good. That's where you win. That's where you can really show compassion and change a life. A pill is never going to fix somebody. It could help, but it's not going to fix them. What helps people, what fixes people is their heart. It's getting to their heart. It's getting to their core. It's having that integrity to just want to serve that person. As broken as what they look, as disheveled as what they look, you want everybody to be part of that team. That's what healthcare is about. It's about that compassion, meeting people where they're at and helping them where they're at, and recognizing that it's an honor to serve somebody. It's an honor to be with this person in this moment in time. It's not because we have a title, right? That has nothing to do with it. It is, you are there for a purpose. Find out what that purpose is. Find out what that person is going to do for you and what you can do for that person. Everybody has a story. Find out what their story is.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you also had, like, when we go up to all these star ratings and all that, you had the highest number of RNs.
I did.
Hours, because you had RNs that wanted to work in your building.
Absolutely.
Because you turned it into a world where it was about clinical excellence versus about, I just need an RN to be the regulation.
No.
And you trained the nurses for what nursing really can do in a nursing home versus just pass a pill.
Oh, yeah. I think, to my core, the nurses in long-term care, and kind of like your critical access hospital nurses and your rural health nurses, they're limited with the amount of resources that they have. They have to be wonderful clinicians. They have to have, that assessment skill. They've got to figure it out because they don't have a physician right there with them 24/7. In a rural access hospital or critical access hospital, it's the same thing. You don't have a lift team. You don't have an IV team. You don't have this team. You don't have this. You don't have these. So you have to be resourceful. I think those nurses and aides and all clinical staff, you have to think. You have to put on your clinical assessment hat every single day because it's just you. Another thing that we did, the team and I, is that we reduced our hospital readmissions because keep the people in their facility, keep the people in their home, because when you take them out of their home, it does more harm. And with RNs, we could do a lot more. I mean, we could do TPN. We could do a lot of things that you don't always get to do in long-term care. And I think that that's kind of where the skill needs to start to think about, because being in the hospital setting, again, we want people out of the hospital. We want them out. Get them out and then get them the resources that they need, because we don't want them back. Because we don't have the resources. And it's just like healthcare. Whether you're for-profit or non-for-profit, you still have a book of business that you are responsible for. That doesn't mean that you don't care. That doesn't mean that you're in healthcare for the wrong reason. It just means that's the responsibility of healthcare nowadays. You have to lead with a book of business. You have to be good stewards of the resources that you have. And so do the best that you can to get those patients stabilized, but get them home. Get them the resources that they need when they're at home, because that's where the healing begins, is in their own home environment where they're safe, where they feel familiar with the smells, the sights and everything. that's when your patients really start to heal.
I don't know if Madison shared this with you, but when she was doing her clinical at the skilled nursing facility, so I was asking her, I said, Madison, if you didn't know anything about nursing homes at all, and you did your clinical, would you choose nursing home as your area of practice? She was absolutely not. And a lot of it was they did not give her or show her how to be a nurse in nursing homes. So when they did their competency for a bed pass for nursing homes, she did it on a mannequin in a lab. The scary part is we want to draw more RNs, nurses into our industry, but if that's the experience that we're giving, no wonder nobody wants to come into it, because where's that ability to critically think, to use your skills?
Yeah.
Went to school for.
Yeah. So, I would kind of respectfully challenge, the leaders of that building, the clinical leaders of that building. Why aren't they expecting that? Why isn't that the expectation? You're a nurse, you have a license, let's use it, and let's use your skills. I would love to see more RNs in long-term care. The more RNs you have, you can bring in that higher acuity. You can tap into your specialty select kind of organizations. You could do the TPN, you can do the dialysis, you can do all that great stuff when you have those RNs. The hospital is hard. The hospital is very hard. And I think that as healthcare keeps on the trajectory that they're on, they're going to be held more accountable to that book of business. But I think that that's also kind of going back to the leadership is, what does that leader expect? What kind of teams are you developing? What kind of teams? And teams is more than just people.
Right.
You have to have compassion. You have to have chemistry. And you need to have that calling. You need to have that kind of commitment. You can have a lot of people on your team, and they could all be subject matter experts. But if they can't talk and if there's no chemistry, you're not going to be able to create anything new. You're not going to be able to tear down walls. You're not going to be able to remove barriers because nobody's talking.
Right.
Everybody's in a silo because I'm the expert. I know everything. I would much rather develop a team of people who are hungry, who are curious, who want to know, who push the standard. Well, but why?
Right.
Why do you see it that way? Help me to understand why you see it that way. Right. Get the team, develop teams that push the envelope, that push the status quo. That's when teams really can create, and that's when you lead great change. That's when you can really break down barriers of the status quo. Well, this is the way we've always said.
I was just going to say that.
How many times have you heard that in healthcare? This is the way we've always done it. And
right. Do it differently. Do different.
You're getting the same results.
Right.
And you're frustrated because you're not getting the results that you want.
Right.
Because you're not willing to go outside of your comfort zone. Right. Change is hard.
Jeannie, I think the part that's interesting is, again, healthcare is always evolving.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can go back to the days when I was even a therapist, and I remember we got the walkie-talkies of basically one diagnosis. But what I see changing in healthcare is, or what I'm seeing is, as it continues to evolve, by just sheer numbers of birth rates.
Yep.
There's just not enough people to care for the seniors that are coming or continue to come with the baby boomers. And what scares me when I sit in my role now is like, how do we get more innovative? How do we get more creative? How do we push different boundaries? How do we change differently? The way we did it 5 years ago isn't even going to work anymore.
Correct.
How do we use technology and innovation more to, I call it the white noise?
Yeah.
To get the white noise out of the way of nursing.
Correct. Right.
So, to your point, it's not about the pill at all. It's about what happens when the pill's given.
Right.
That's the critical element. And knowing that maybe there's not going to be enough nurses to pass the med, so I do need to have somebody else to do it. But I need to make sure how to continue to change the mindset of the nursing to say, I'm not trying to diminish who you are as a nurse. I'm trying to get rid of the white noise so I can tap into your highest level of licensure and thinking, because that's what I need. And that's what scares me right now is that there's just not enough people out there.
With the way that healthcare is going, not only just needing people to serve people, but the way that we're treating our people that we are entrusting our patients, residents with. And, Paul, I just want to pause and really give you that shout out, because you have consistently treated people with kindness, dignity, and respect. You never need to know their title. If they walk through the door, they are important. And that has resonated with me, and that's why you lead so successfully. And I can't say that that's the standard in healthcare. You just saw, or you may not have seen, but I think it was last week or the week before, Becker's 20% increase of suicide, depression, mental illness in long-term care. Why is that? You see suicide going crazy in healthcare workers, physicians, residents, nurses, nursing students. This mental illness is just going to take out people that are good and that have compassion. So what are healthcare organizations doing? Not only does healthcare have the competition of baby boomers, people aren't having as many kids, and et cetera, but we're also competing with industries that treat their employees like gold. Look at Google. Oh my goodness, do they treat their employees phenomenally? There's a balance, right? I'm not saying, go extreme or what, but healthcare traditionally, it's, you know what, you got a 12-hour shift, suck it up. You're lucky if you get to go to the bathroom. It's a great shift. Right? That's not the way it should be.
The standard.
Right,
it's like,
right.
Let's raise that.
Yeah. You have to raise the bar. And if we're not taking care of our staff, if we're not feeding our flock, if we're not shepherding our team the way it should be, if we're not feeding them in not a pizza party, that is so not the way that you feed your flock, but if we're not elevating them, if we're not bringing out their value, if we're not letting them know, you're important to me. Tell me your story. Why did you show up today? What's going on? We got to know about those single mom that worked 2-3 jobs, and that they're taking care of their grandma and their granddaddies, and they're taking care of this and that. And when they don't show up, it's not because they're just being lazy. No, there's a problem. If you don't know your team well enough, you're not going to be able to support them through the times where they're exhausted and where they got to give and give and give and give. And I think that's why I never had to mandate. I just don't like that word mandating. You're forcing somebody to do something against their will. You can't do that in healthcare.
Because we learn as leaders, right? We write our policies for 5% of the population, right? We write it for that. There are bad people in this world.
100%.
Just, it is the reality.
Yep.
And guess what? But that's what we hold everybody to, that standard of the bad people. And we say, well, of course, Jeannie's, you're bad. No, you're not. You're a good person. You have bad circumstance.
You're going through a season.
You're going through a season. Do they know that I'm fighting emotionally through all this garbage, but still trying to show up to work? But again, and that's the thing where, again, I think that you have brought such value through that time of my journey, was that you always said, what is the person's heart?
You mentioned something earlier about the calling, and I think as nurses, and just, I think high achieving people at period is, you always wonder, what is my assignment, or what is my calling, or what is my purpose, right? You're like, I do all this, what is my purpose? And you spoke on dignity in that hospice house, and I thought about that early on as a nurse, and I remember that moment. And I had this resident who was on hospice. She was at the end of her life, and she had 5 kids, and none of them were there. None of them. So I didn't want her to be by herself, right? I won't lie. I mean, it crossed my mind at one point, like, why the heck aren't these people here, right? Because that's what we always did. We have these patients. They're easy to tell stories, right? You can tell a story about that person. I was driving one day and I thought about that. that was an honor to be with her,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's in those moments, even when it's not then, you're like, of course it's a paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's great, but it was an honor that I was picked.
To be with that person.
To be with her.
Yeah.
On
that final breath.
Right.
When my mom was diagnosed with vascular dementia and we had to place her. And I remember my mom was very social, very social person. She would come in, and if I brought you to our house, you would eat, whether you were hungry or not. She would say, you know what, sis, I have chicken. I can cook you up something really quick. And that's how she showed caring for people. She wanted to take care of them. And I always said, I just want my mom, somebody to be there to hold her hand when she passes away. Because I knew that families usually didn't make it in time. So I just was like, I just want to know somebody's there with her.
Yeah.
And that to me was the most pivotal point. And to know that somebody was there and just held her hand as she took her last breath and was there to care for her. That to me, that's what it's about. At the end of the day, just making sure we're taking care of our residents. It is an honor to be in this industry to take care of our seniors.
Absolutely. And you're not only taking care of seniors right now. I mean, you're
all
taking
ages.
care of all generations now,
Right.
but again, they're broken. But what's their story? Find out why and help them, be with them, meet them where they're at. We were born for relationships. We were born for community. And, those people that are able to live in a long-term care facility for the rest of their days, they're fortunate because there's so many that are out there that are by themselves. I mean, that are isolated, that people pass and they don't even know that they're passed until consumers or the electric company comes by and says, oh, anybody home? There's that community. And I love that fact that you mentioned about your mom, having a meal. So many good things happen over food.
Remember the dementia unit?
Yeah.
Remember? So, when I first started in, it's the locked unit. First, it was always called the locked unit because it was
awful.
Lockdown.
The lockdown, it was awful.
Prison.
Like a jail.
Prison.
Awful.
I think a prison looked better than this.
Oh, it's awful.
So Jeannie's there, and she's on her journey with that building and stuff. And I remember going there to round, and we went to the unit. And I remember going there because I was like, it's blue.
He didn't
Where's
like
the
it.
nurse's station? I ripped it out. I'm like, so what she did was she rallied the team around and she truly made it a home.
Wow.
So she did evidence-based, and that's the other thing I remember you always advocated for, evidence-based nursing for dementia was certain colors. So they made sure whether, it didn't fit my color palette.
Nope.
But it was evidence-based. And so they did that. And I remember, because I'll never forget, and I do share the story to this day, we went into the unit, and so you went through the double doors, kind of went down a little bit of a ramp, and right at the corner was where the nurse's station was. So that was ripped out. There was a table.
Yeah, a round
She
table
put a
about this
table,
size.
and she had 4 chairs, but there were actually these elderly women
Yeah.
sitting there visiting.
Yeah, playing cards or whatever.
You know, so they were having it, and then we went into this big multi-purpose dining room area, and they did, what do we call them, like the stations?
Yep.
What are they?
Life
Stations.
story.
Yeah.
The life stations. You know?
Oh, yeah. Like the tools.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those men.
Yeah.
Or,
Well,
Laundry.
I mean, but they set this up. Well, what they actually did was very creative. They actually split the units to a men and women's. And so they made the men's like the man cave.
Man cave, yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
Tools and stuff,
then
yeah.
for the females, they did things like, baby stations and things that resonated more for that caring, nurturing. And I mean, just saw such a difference in that unit.
Oh, it was great.
Care, falls. I think you guys went
Oh,
through
our
this.
falls went down.
Oh, tremendous
significantly.
amount.
Oh, yeah.
Reduced to
Nothing.
like way down.
Yeah.
You guys went on this long trajectory of no falls.
Yeah.
Wow.
But again,
That's awesome.
It was designing a care model that was around the resident versus a policy, a task.
Institutionalized.
Yes.
Yeah.
It resonated. But again, when you talk about that meal and that camaraderie, but that having that moment where those ladies were sitting, you could tell that's what they did in their lives.
Right.
And how many falls did that reduce for those women just sitting?
Oh,
Probably.
gosh, I don't have the numbers, but yeah, we went to like no falls. And when there was a fall, it was like, okay, why? Like everybody was
Something
on
was
board.
wrong.
Something was wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody was on board. Everybody was engaged. Everybody had, skin in the game because we don't let falls happen. And another thing that, I don't know if you remember this, but there was one thing I just, to my core was, we do not grow wounds. We heal wounds. And we had no wounds.
We didn't.
And mind you, when I walked in, again, if I would have known, it would have been a totally different story. But I think that's why, because I didn't know how bad it was. So he's like, oh, hook, line, and sinker. She doesn't know. Come on. Get her before she leaves.
But again, I think those are the very strong words. Like when I think about our company, we talk about through the hearts of our care team members, we provide excellent healthcare to those we serve. Excellence, or like you were saying, honor. Like those are big words to me, because excellence is meeting someone where they're at. Excellent is different for me than it is for you. To truly be able to care for somebody, to be able to meet them in their journey and to help them through wherever they want to go. I have a strong faith, and sometimes my faith doesn't align with your faith.
Yeah.
But that's not for me to call out.
Right.
I'm here just to care, and I'm called to take care of. And I think that's, again, is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. I think that's where healthcare, what are we going to do in the future, right? We're going to have AI help us out, but embrace it and allow the nurses and allow the care team to be able to take care of that patient, to have that moment to listen to what their story is, and to be able to sit and hold their hand. Now it's just, I got to, check this box, otherwise, we're not going to get reimbursed to the highest that we can. And, let AI do all that. So then you can. But I also think long-term care needs to be rebranded to nursing schools. Because, when they go in, they all have capes and they want to, save the day. And they're all these, adrenaline junkie wannabes, which is fine. We've all been there as nurses. I'm going to save the day and I'm going to do all this. But why aren't we out there, and why isn't long-term care out there going to these nursing schools and saying, hey, let me come in and talk to your class about the great things that can happen in skilled and long-term care. Did you know you can take care of TPN? Did you know you can take care of a vent patient? Did you know you could do this and do that and do peritoneal dialysis? Did you know that you could do that? They don't know that. They just think that they're going to go to long-term care, pass a pill, and let them rot. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Yeah. And so it's networking with your educational institutions and being in with them and asking them, let me come in and talk. Let me host that class for a day. I know we did that when I was at the location. I went to the community college and I networked with them. I got in there. People came to me as new grads. And you have to embrace your new grads. You can't scare them away. And I think also, unfortunately for Madison, when you have unfortunate nursing school experiences, it kind of is like, I don't know if I want to do this.
You don't want to go back.
No, you get beat up, you get,
And why would you?
No,
right?
Right. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our staff. We're taking care of our leaders, allowing them to go into educational institutions to network, giving them that, okay, you know what, let's put your responsibilities on hold today or delegate them to somebody else. And let's get you out there. Let's get you to, or are we sponsoring? Are you sponsoring people in the community, in the high school that want to go to nursing school, but they can't afford it?
Right.
Look how much it costs for nurses when they leave. Retaining a nurse is way more beneficial and operationally sound than it is to have somebody come in for a year and then have them leave. The hospital is hard. The hospital is very hard. Long-term care is hard. But how can we remove that? Or how can we change that hard to it's okay that it's hard?
But again, if you look at technology the way it is and where we're going, so it's kind of like I always say, we have one foot on the pier and one in a boat. So we're in a time where it's like, to what you're saying is, allow technology to take over those tasky things that we don't need a nurse to do anymore, because that's where one foot's on and one foot's off is where this generation, like my generation, that we used to do it this way.
Yep.
Now we have to, and technology, nobody wants to adapt technology. And that's where we are going as a company. We are going to push the envelope, and we are going to go down that road, because at the end of the day, if we don't, we're not going to provide the excellent care. We just can't.
Right.
And the other part is when you talk about, because Madison would share with me about her class of long-term care, I'm like, okay, when's the last time this educator worked in nursing homes?
They did.
Because like what they're sharing is like, that's not true.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Well, but again, their experience, and again, it goes back to is what is their experience? But I would also say that you're right. We have to challenge our leaders to elevate to the highest level of licensure or titles.
Yep.
A director of nursing isn't there just to be walking the floors and just the director of nursing. I remember you used to always say this, I'm not pushing a cart. And it wasn't because you were willing to get out there.
That's right, because I did.
Like, where do you want me to be? You want me to be the director of nursing, strategy, guiding this building, getting it out of agency, getting quality and all that? Or do you want me pushing the cart?
Yep.
Because if you're pushing the cart, you can't do this.
That's right.
You can't. So I think that's where we have to challenge our nurse leaders, because we have nurses that want to take care of people, so they'll go to the bedside first. But are you holding people accountable?
Yeah.
Are you following good evidence-based care and this education training and all that, so that you can do these things over here, which could be with point-click care and different things where we're challenging our EHR system to do differently, and to challenge how do we get forward thinking, how do we push the envelope further ahead so our nurses can do what they went to school, what they wanted to.
Right.
They want to take care of the patient.
Right.
So I just think we're at such a pivotal point, and we had a speaker come and speak to us, and what resonated was, and she is right. So, if you start down here, and this is where we were when I came 2 years ago, and as that curve, well, we're right at this curve, because we want to go there. We want to go high. But we're at that curve where if we're not careful, the curve's going to bend back.
Yeah.
Because we need to make sure, are we building good systems, processes, pushing our technology, pushing all the things that we need to, so we can keep climbing, whether it's crucial conversations with each other, whether it's getting uncomfortable, saying, "Oh, get over yourself."
Yeah.
It's you, or
Removing the nurse's station.
Right.
Together.
And all that. But that's where we have to get as leaders, because if we don't keep challenging and pushing that, we're gonna, that curve will bend, and we'll go back to, it's just more of put a Band-Aid versus a true solution.
Yeah. And that's where, when it comes to team building, you have to have that chemistry, that curiosity, and that compassion and commitment to one another. Your teams have to feel safe to come up and say, like, I felt safe with you.
Right.
Like, get over yourself. It's not about you, Paul. It's about the resident, and it's about doing the right thing.
Correct.
So if you're not having that environment of safety, you're not going to be able to get to that high point. That's that peak of the Maslow's hierarchy. You have to have a safe foundation. And you also need to make sure that everybody knows, what are your values? What are your core values? I can probably guarantee if I went into any one of your Majestic Care buildings, everybody would know what your core values are, based upon like what I see on LinkedIn and just how you're celebrating everything. You're creating that safety. You're creating that desire to do the right thing. You're creating that camaraderie, that relationship. Your staff at your buildings, they're feeling like they're part of something. That's where that relationship, that's where that value, that's where that all comes into play. We're not meant to be alone. We're meant for a relationship. And so you've developed, through your heart, the expectation of the core values of love, excellence, listen, empathy,
accountability, and
decisiveness. So I bet everybody knows what that is.
But that's what it came out of too, because again, if you go back to, and even I'll even get real with our executives, we had a meeting a few weeks back, and I stood in front of them and I said, let's go over our core values. And are we doing that as executives? Are we empathetic to each other? Do I recognize when Chelsey is starting to shut down in a meeting because in that meeting, maybe I said something that shut her down. And then when we have that negative outcome in the building, then we can't hold the staff member accountable to it. We have to, as a leader, say, that's on us. We chose not to do something. And so therefore, we cannot just go in and just say, Jeannie, you're fired today because, you didn't do this.
Leading by that example will then entice your frontline staff to do the same thing. That they will be practicing every day with accountability. They're going to turn that person. They're going to get that person up and ambulate. They're going to make sure that they get those wounds and those dressings changed on a timely fashion. But they have to make sure that they feel safe. If there is a concern, if something isn't feeling right, if something is going a little sour that day, do they have the freedom to go to their upline and say, you know what? This and this and this is happening, and these are the solutions that I have for this. You can't bring a problem forward without a potential solution.
Right.
Can they bring that forward to the leaders of the organization? And it sounds like that they can, because that's what you expect. Right. And you do practice like that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be having the relationship that we have, because we can have that open, safe conversation and not always see eye to eye, but that's okay. Right. That's where the chemistry comes in. Right. That's where that change comes in. That's where you climb that curve, right? And you keep on reaching for the top, because you've got to have that sandpaper a little bit in order to create something better.
I love that. Yeah. Jeannie, what does excellence mean to you in leadership?
Oh gosh, compassion. Having that intestinal fortitude to do the right thing. It takes courage to be excellent.
That's beautiful.
You have to have that in you, because your excellence and my excellence might be two different things. Right. But if we're giving it our all, then we're giving excellence. Yeah. And that's what it means.
So we work both at a large healthcare organization in Michigan. And so I remember they would always say, like, for example, falls. 0 falls. People would be like, seriously? There will never be 0. But here's the thing. You could say, well, then you're not going to fall on my watch.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
If you do fall,
right,
I'm going to dig through that chart and I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah,
we're not going to do it.
It's not going to happen again.
Right.
And if you fall again, I'm not going to just buy into that world where that it's like, well, that's just Chelsey. She just falls. No. What else?
Excuse.
And yes, this is getting hard, and it's getting harder. And it goes back to what we talked about. Yes, the hardest things give the greatest benefit and reward. I never learned anything through easy lessons.
Oh, no.
It's the pain. I remember some heart-wrenching conversations, or I remember my first boss ever. I was a therapist and back in the day in PTA, and they wanted me to go into management, which was very unheard of back then. And I just remember my boss, when I got the promotion, I got the job, and then I remember my first review, she goes, man, your grammar is horrible. And she goes, and in meetings, she goes, you do not do well in meetings at all. And so I'm young, and I was mortified. I'm like,
you were beat up.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Like.
So, but I had a choice at that point.
Yep.
And a choice. I could either wallow in it and be like, well, basically, screw you, Sherry, and I'll do it, Or I remember going back, and I had a friend that sat next to me. She was a speech pathologist, and I said, hey, Katie, and this was after I processed everything. I said, I was told my grammar isn't great, whatever. It's like, and so she just looked, and I could tell by her facial, I'm like, oh, seriously? She goes, well, there are times. And I'm like, so we made a pact, but I felt safe with her. Yeah. That please don't embarrass me. If somebody didn't care enough to share that with me and tell me that, I would never have walked away and grown from it. And again, that's where I think, if we as leaders can't challenge each other, have that, and throw the titles out the door and just say, you know what, here it is. And how do we make changes?
Right.
And I think, too, it's an ego factor as well, because you have to balance, okay, well, if I'm going to give this really hard feedback, our relationship might be changed. And then what? And then what if they think this? And what if they think that? But what if they do great? And what if, the residents are impacted more positively? Yeah. And if they are excellent, they will be like,
You're right. They will be like, please tell me when my grammar's bad.
Well,
but I don't think we can get over that sometimes.
and you're right on it. It's at the end of the day, and I'm willing to have that conversation on their behalf to say, this isn't about you failed or that, but it's about a situation that we have to talk about because the residents in the building are getting not the care that we want or we expect or whatever that is. And I think if we can frame it in that, take the side on it that's personal, where you're coming at me.
That's right. That's right.
We're having a conversation around a process, a procedure, a policy, a regulation, that the end result was poor care. So let's talk about it. And because you were part of the situation, we need to talk about it, because if we don't fix this,
it's going to continue.
It's the old analogy on Facebook, right? The Albert Einstein insanity that we all keep reading the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
It's not going to happen.
You can't be surprised when you have more pressure also.
Right. Because you didn't change anything.
Right.
Yeah. No, you have to be part of the solution. You got to bring it in and remove that personal attack, because nobody wants to be personally attacked. And, yes, there are bad people in this world, but for the majority of the people that are in healthcare, we don't wake up and say, "Oh, I'm just gonna."
Somebody gets pressure.
Right. Yeah. Like we really want that. No.
Right.
We want good. We want good things to happen. So bringing people in, talking to, and finding out the why behind it. Why? What happened? Because more than likely, it's a process problem, not a person problem.
Right. That's at 5%.
Right.
Yeah.
To do no harm. We don't want to do harm.
Thanks for listening to Hearts of Excellence. To learn more about becoming a care team member or how we can support your loved ones, visit majesticcare.com. And don't forget to follow and share, because every story deserves to be heard.